Hello, everyone. Welcome to another First Chapter Friday with me, Miss Gabby. Today, we're going to be reading Part of Your Nightmare by Vera Strange. This is a book in the Disney Chills series. And I'm going to be reading you 2 chapters today, just because the first one is so short. I want you to get a chance to really get a feel for this exciting book. Chapter 1, Under the Sea. Cold water enveloped Shelley as she plunged. She spiraled down through what appeared to be tangles of kelp. What was happening to her? Where was she going? Finally, she somersaulted to a stop in a dim, underwater cavern. She began to swim, holding her breath, not sure where she was going, just knowing she needed to find an exit, to find air. But seaweed snagged at her ankles, trapping her. "Leave here. Turn back," came a tiny, pained voice as clear as day, even that far underwater. Shelley looked down and saw faces on the seaweed. And with her heart racing and air running out, she realized it wasn't seaweed at all, but withered gray life forms with shallow eyes and gaping, contorted mouths. They were nothing she had ever studied or seen in the aquarium. They couldn't be talking to her, though. She must have imagined it. A current gripped her and sucked her down. She tried to swim against it, but it was too strong. Her lungs ached, fit to burst. Suddenly, an enormous crystal ball clamped around her, and her mouth opened in a silent scream. But then the water drained from the enclosure, and she was able to breathe, though she spluttered and spat and pounded her fists on the curved crystal. "Help! Let me out!" she yelled. Everything looked distorted through the glass. She could barely make out the underwater cavern. Glass bottles lined the rough-hewn walls, and there were glowing anemones in the eyes of those things. She gasped as something huge, bulbous, and black swam past her. What was that? "Lose something, dear?" The same deep, rich voice she had heard in her little brother's bedroom emanated from the shadowy corners of the cavern. So coy. A black tentacle shot out of the gloom and rapped on the glass. Shelley cowered, fear gripping her. "What do you want?" she gasped. 3 days earlier. Chapter 2, Straws Suck. "Circle up and pay attention, students." Mr. Equanon attempted to corral his class, a rowdy group of 6th graders from Trenton Bay Middle School, as they had gathered around the main aquarium exhibit. When the chatter quieted only a little, he raised his voice again. "Now, who can tell me what this marine animal is called?" he said, pointing to a large, graceful creature paddling through the rippling blue water. Before Shelley could stop herself, she struck up her hand. "Leatherback sea turtle." "Very good, Shelley," said Mr. Aquano. "Now, why do sea turtles eat plastic bags?" "'Cause they're dumb fish," Normie Watson said, prompting snickering. "Actually, they're not fish, they're reptiles," Mr. Aquano said with a disapproving frown. "And they're not dumb. They're actually very smart. Now, anybody else?" Shelley was secretly glad that he'd shut Normie down. Serves him right. She watched the sea turtles drift past the sunken pirate ship and treasure chest that decorated the faux undersea environment. It wheeled around a rusty barnacled trident, the centerpiece of the exhibit, which stuck out from the bright white sand. Suddenly, a huge reef shark swam behind Mr. Aquino. "Watch out!" Normie yelled, pointing to its huge jaws filled with jagged teeth. Gasps and nervous giggles rang out. "Megalodon just tried to chomp Mr. Aquino's head," he said. As if anything could swim through the glass, Shelley thought. She thrust up her hand again, since no one had answered their teacher's questions yet, and Mr. Aquino pointed to her. "Because sea turtles mistake plastic bags for jellyfish, their main source of food," she said. "Correct again, Shelley," he said, flashing her a smile while her classmates groaned. Shelley's new best friend Kendall shot her a look and mouthed one word: nerd. Atena and Elena, the twins, who rounded out their friends group, giggled at Shelley. Kendall had long blonde hair that swooped around her shoulders like it was out of a shampoo commercial, and blue-green eyes the color of the sea. The twins were identical, with curly auburn hair and a stylish asymmetrical bob, and brown eyes. All three girls were dressed the same, in designer athleisure clothes from Ever After Boutique in downtown Triton Bay, the quaint seaside city where they lived. The trio also slurped iced lattes from disposable plastic cups with 2 plastic straws each. Shelley's cheeks burned with embarrassment. I shouldn't have kept raising my hand, Shelley thought. It was a hard instinct to fight. Science nerds were more revolting than rotten fish to the popular kids. She'd had to change schools at the beginning of the school year when her mother moved her and her little brother Dawson from their big old house by the ocean to the townhouse in the complex on the edge of the canals. And it had taken her many long months to make new friends. One glorious day, Kendall had invited Shelley to sit with her group at lunch. Shelley had become fast friends with the 3 of them after that. Nothing was going to ruin Shelley's happiness about that friendship, including her father leaving their house and moving into the weird, dingy apartment with stained carpets that always smelled like greasy delivery food, and her brother's goldfish, Mr. Bubbles, going belly up and getting flushed down the toilet the past week. Nothing was worse than having no friends. Nice job, Shelley, said Mr. Aquino, with a wink, snapping her out of her thoughts. Nice job, Shelley, Norman mocked. Of course she knows everything about fish. Everyone knew that Shelley's parents owned the Triton Bay Aquarium. A year earlier, she and her little brother used to love going to work with their parents on the weekends, following their mother around while she managed the feeding schedules and directed the staffers, or hanging out with their father in the office while he handled the bills and dealt with guest relations. But the days of both parents being at the aquarium at the same time had passed. Shelley followed as Mr. Aquino led the class to the next tank on the tour. Shelley caught sight of her reflection in the tank's clear barrier. She had long, dark, curly hair, streaked with blonde highlights from all the time she spent on the aquarium's outdoor sun deck feeding the dolphins. Her eyebrows and eyes were darker brown than her sun-kissed skin. Her favorite thing about her appearance was her long, strong legs, which helped her swim fast. Sunlight filtered through the water, casting strange shadows onto her classmates. She didn't need to look at the illustrated play cards to know what the exhibit housed: spiny lobsters, stingrays, barracuda, and garden eels. The lobsters, looking like giant red insects waving their antennas, lumbered around the bottom of the tank filled with coral reef and sea sponges. Mr. Aquino held up a white plastic straw. Now, someone tell me what this is. They all stifled their laughter at the easy question, all except for Shelley, who prevented her arm from raising. She wasn't going to risk Kendall calling her a nerd again. I'm pretty sure that's a straw, said Normie. Do I get extra credit now? The class broke into laughter. Our sea sponges here are smarter than Normie, Shelley thought with a head shake. It's not just any straw, Mr. Aquino replied, ignoring Normie's request. He slipped into his full-on enthusiastic teacher mode, waving the straw around. It's a plastic straw I found on the beach this morning. He paused for dramatic effect. Did you know that 90% of seabirds and 50% of sea turtles have been found to have plastic straws in their stomachs? Shelley felt a lump in her throat. She did know. How could she not? She used to be the head of the Kids Care Conservation Club at the aquarium. Earlier that year, she'd spoken to Mr. Aquino about starting a chapter at school. That was before she became friends with Kendall. This straw looks harmless enough, Mr. Aquino went on, gesturing to the exhibit, where a smiling stingray drifted serenely behind the glass. But it's no laughing matter. This little straw could kill an endangered animal like that turtle, or poison our precious oceans. Death by killer straws, Kendall murmured, shaking her iced latte with its 2 straws at Atena and Elena. Anything but the killer straws, she added, flicking the top of the straws. Atina and Elena giggled at her quip and sipped from their own ice lattes. Shelley cringed, feeling bad for Mr. Aquino. Her teacher gave up. All right, I'll give you 2 options, dolphin exhibit or gift shop. They all yelled, "Gift shop!" at the top of their lungs. Shelley kept her mouth shut. She wanted to visit the dolphins, watch the feeders toss fish to Sassy and Salty, and maybe even dip her hand into the open-air tank and pet Lil Mermy, the youngest dolphin in the pod. But it would just have to wait for another time. Fit in at all costs, she told herself as she sidled up to her new friends. Please, Kendall said to her posse, then loudly slurped her iced latte through its 2 straws. First, no more plastic bags. And now they want to take away my straws? No thanks. For reals, Atina chimed in, fiddling with her sparkly headband, which perfectly matched her sister's, though Atina's was pink and Elena's was blue. Who cares about boring old fish anyway? Hashtag BTD, Elena added, bored to death. She drank from her iced latte. The 3 girls turned to Shelley, expectantly, each sipping from her drink. Right, so boring, Shelley mumbled, forcing out the opposite of what she actually felt. Totally, said Kendall with a smile. Shells, we love how you're such a know-it-all. Elena and Atina tittered at her remarks. Shelley didn't know how to take it, so she simply smiled. Thanks, I think, she said. The girls began to trail behind the rest of the class, heading for the aquarium gift shop. Shelley glanced at the front entrance that led to the main exhibit, and she spotted the new security system and alarms installed on the doors. She'd overheard her father talking on the phone with the police, saying that somebody had been trying to break into the aquarium the past few weeks. But then, the entrance passed out of sight as Shelley and her friends headed into a dark, narrow corridor marked by portholes. Only shadowy light filtered through the round windows. The undersea creatures darted past the glass. This was Shelley's favorite part of the aquarium. Kendall nudged her aside. Hey, who is that? She asked, cocking her eyebrows. Shelley followed her gaze to a boy about their age, leading a group of tourists past them in the corridor. He had curly black hair paired with green eyes, the color of ocean shallows. His smile lit up as he talked animatedly, pointing to jellyfish spinning and twirling in a graceful undersea dance. Their transparent bodies glowed with bioluminescence in the large porthole. Shelley shrugged. Oh, that's just Enrique. Just Enrique? Kendall said in mock horror. Major swoon. Total swoon, Atina and Elena said in unison. Shelley studied his face, trying to see what Kendall, Atina, and Elena saw, but all she could see was a friendly boy who shared her fascination with marine life. Everyone at the aquarium was family, including Enrique. She couldn't think of him any other way. His older brother, Miguel, is a college student, Shelley said. Miguel studies marine biology and volunteers here for his fall internship. Sometimes Enrique tags along to help out. He's actually pretty silly and kind of a science nerd, she added, the last word slipping out. Science nerd, huh? Kendall asked, pulling a gross-out face. Never mind. Suddenly, something gelatinous swam up to the porthole behind Kendall's head. It moved like a gigantic spider, only quicker, cutting through the water and blocking out the light. Atina squealed and dropped her cup. Elena pointed to the porthole. Kendall, watch out! Just then, a slimy tentacle shot towards the glass. That is the end of our 2 chapters of Part of Your Nightmare by Vera Strange. I hope you enjoyed this book, and if you would like to know more and find out how the story finishes, stop by your local library to pick up your copy today. I'll see you guys all next time here on First Chapter Fridays. Bye!